Friday morning, friends. Welcome back for another episode of the Finding God in the Dark podcast. I'm Don,
I'm Jonathan.
and today, we had a little hitch in our giddy up, and so far as getting guests in, we have been talking to our respective district superintendents, and it's early in the year, so it's starting into appointment season. They're a
Yeah.
little busy, so it's understandable. Um, but they are invited,
Yeah.
and we're trying to make plans to have each of them on at some point. Um, so we have shifted gears a little, and we're going to start talking about some of the films that have been nominated for Academy Awards this year.
Yeah.
So the film that we are, and it's not real obvious from Jonathan's background necessarily, unless you've seen the film.
Yeah.
The film that we're talking about today has been nominated for Best Picture Award. It's called Train Dreams. It stars
Yeah.
Joel Edgerton. Um, what else do you want to say about it before we jump into themes, John?
It's on Netflix if you want to
It
watch it.
is, yeah, it is on Netflix if you want to watch it. Um, we had a little bit of a miscommunication. We were talking about it in that, um, I felt it's a very slow developing film.
Yeah, it is.
One might say a slow burn, but I'm not sure it ever really got to the burn part. It just felt, for me at least, felt really slow. Jonathan, on the other hand,
Yeah, I felt like I felt like it was a meditative work of art to kind of make you set with life and death and dealing with all of that. And in life, death, even though death is hard and we deal with it, it doesn't come at you like a freight train a lot. Sometimes it's just kind of there and you kind of have to process it. And that's
yeah.
kind of what you see this character do. So,
Yeah, and it's interesting that, you say freight train. There are a number of scenes in this film where he has dreams
yeah,
that involve trains. Now, part of what he does is work on the railroad.
yeah. He's a logger.
He's a logger, and and I guess install the ties, the cross ties for railroads and things. Um, so like you cannot understand it from that point, but if there was a metaphor that the director, the producers, the writers were going for with those dreams, I missed it.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was. If you saw something I didn't, John.
I it was very interesting because this was, to me, it's one of the most beautiful movies in the last year I've seen. Like the
Mhm.
scenery is just amazing, and they do an
Yeah.
amazing job of kind of just allowing you to enjoy the beauty of the Northwest.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, to me, it was interesting because you can read it as a really sad tale. It's kind of this guy who gets stuck in tragedy and seems to be kind of holding on, but in a weird way, as one of the characters later in the movie says, maybe the world needs hermits in the woods just as much as they need pastors in the pulpits. You
Yeah.
know, you know, you recognize in a weird way he was kind of finding his peace with all of this, even though it looked like he was withdrawing. He just to kind of catch you up, he loses his wife and young daughter, and they have kind of built a life out in the forests of, I think, Idaho.
Idaho, yeah.
And they they built a cabin. They've kind of along again this beautiful stretch of land, and he loses that, and then he spends the rest of his life really kind of there, waiting, kind of hoping that his wife and his daughter didn't die, that they'll find their way back. He, in fact, has a dream at one point that seems to be his imagination creating a young woman or a young girl showing up at his house, and that might be his daughter. And then, of course, the next morning she is completely gone, and you kind of wonder yourself, did he ever have this experience, or is it all in his mind? You know.
Mhm.
And yet, in a weird way, the movie seems to argue that he found peace, even though you could easily argue he locked himself away in the woods. So,
Yeah. It's really, and this is, I think, a really strong theme in this film. It's really an examination of sort of unprocessed grief,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because he spends his whole life after that tragedy just in that grief moment until the very end of the film.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Do we want to give away?
Yeah, I think if you want to watch this before you hear us talk about it, stop and go watch it and
Stop
then come
here.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go spoiler alerts. I think we're gonna do a lot of we've done a couple Oscar movies before we knew they were gonna be Oscar movies.
Right.
We're gonna now do quite a few that now that the nominations have come out. All of these movies obviously are new, so if you don't want them ruined, don't
Mhm.
watch before you.
Right. Exactly. So I think the scene, and we talked about this briefly
Yeah,
before we started recording. The scene that I thought really brought the film together at the
yeah,
end was, told the story, and you had a narrator throughout the film,
yeah.
and the narrator said he would go to the local city and he would
Tacoma,
walk
yeah,
around.
yeah.
Spokane, yeah, and walk
Spokane, yeah,
around
Spokane, yeah, yeah,
and just like he was looking for something, and then it kind of shows him, and then he sees like these airplane rides, go up and be like the birds for $4.
yeah,
And so they're biplanes, old biplanes, of course.
yeah,
It's early 20th century, I think, right?
yeah, mhm,
And so there's no, like cockpit, it's not enclosed,
yeah,
right? And he's in the front seat, the pilot's behind him, and at one point the pilot says, um, hold on to something.
yeah,
And then immediately the film cuts to this montage of all of these wonderful memories from, with his wife and his daughter, and building the home, and, creating that ideal life for himself. And I
yeah.
thought it was this really brilliant transition of processing his grief in
Yeah.
that moment.
And it even says it goes at that moment he realized how it all fit together, which I thought
How
was
it all
really nice.
Yeah, how he's connected to everything, which I thought, oh, there's a Methodist idea.
Yes, yeah. I laugh because he we spent a lot of time with him logging as well, and Arn, one of his close friends who ultimately dies logging,
Mhm.
um, says about how he's been all over where and people are really great except for Kansas, which made me laugh because that's where I'm from. I think he said they're crazy or something, and I'm like, yeah, that kind of fits. But I thought it was interesting how this movie kind of presents issues, but didn't really do a ham-handed kind of like this is how you have to feel about them, which I thought was interesting
Yeah.
because it kind of presents this change in logging and on some level change in society from you go in with a group of men and they cut down by hand these
Hmm.
trees, and I'm sure it takes them forever. And then you see at the end of the movie, they've transitioned to chainsaws and they're doing it quite quickly. And there's a scene in the first part of the movie with Arn, who's kind of the old man who's still working, and one of the young guys goes like, I've been all around in Canada and all around in the Pacific Northwest. We have trees we could cut down for 1,000 years and still have enough. And even if we got down with the last tree, by the time we cut down the last tree, the new trees will be really tall. And basically like there's no problem or nothing to worry about. And Arn says, that's what I thought when I was a young man too. And you realize kind of there's this kind of thing about we are impacting our environment, and how do we do that well? Are we doing it well? Those were all questions there, but it
It's
wasn't a ham-handed kind of like this is how you have to see this. It was
Yeah,
just
it's
like
a
let's
stewardship
think about this.
question, right?
Yeah,
It's a
it was almost
stewardship
like a
question.
it was like a question opening up the conversation, which was
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Um, there was what was I thinking? There was another scene um with that guy Arn. I don't know. I don't remember. I'll come to it or I won't. Uh
Yeah, I mean, he unfortunately dies in a logging accident, but he
mhm.
doesn't die right away. And I did think it was interesting that even in the midst of he got hit on the head, and so he's clearly, losing cognitive function. And yet, at one point, um, the lead character Robert is sitting with him, kind of basically just kind of being with him as he's dying.
Yeah.
And Arn goes like that, kind of looks in awe, and he's like, "Beautiful." And he goes, "What's beautiful?" He goes, "All of it." And
Yeah.
to me, I think I really maybe I've been taking a meditative class this month, so maybe some of that's part of this, but in a weird way, this was a really meditative film for me.
Hmm.
Like it was kind of like set and recognize. I felt like one of the themes of the movie was recognize the beauty in just normal life, recognize the beauty in everyday life, in your work, in your family, in your journeys. Like there wasn't these amazing moments, but you were surrounded by beautiful scenery. And that scene for me where he was like, "What's beautiful?" and he was like, "All of it." Like it was, I don't know, that was a powerful thing to think
I
about.
I remember what I was going to say. And it wasn't with Arn. It was with later in the film
Yeah,
when he's been in the woods.
yeah,
He's now started a new career. He's got a
yeah,
wagon and horses,
yeah,
and he meets this woman named Claire.
there, yeah.
And he goes out to visit with her, and she's I think, a forest ranger,
She's
park
she's
ranger.
she's the first generation of forest rangers. Yeah,
Yeah. And something she said, which again will go back to the connectional thing, but she talked about how all of the trees are indiscernible they're all connected
connected.
underground.
Yeah,
And I went, this idea is very ham-handedly put forward in the Avatar films.
yeah, hmm,
Like they beat you over the head with it. Here it
yeah,
was just like, yeah, it's just a fact of life. It's nature, and that's what it is. And I thought, that's so much nicer.
well, I
Like, just put it out there. And yes, we are all connected.
yeah,
And sometimes it's difficult to, you know, draw those lines of separation. And maybe we shouldn't sometimes,
yeah.
you know.
Well, I've been watching a documentary. It's really a six-part documentary about Martin Scorsese. And at one point, somebody in the documentary says Scorsese's really interesting because he presents you with really dramatic situations, but doesn't tell you how to feel about them.
Right.
And I kind of, in a weird way, there's no huge drama in this film, but this film asks really profound questions, but doesn't give you an answer. Just kind of goes like, what should we do with nature? And how should we recognize our connection to it? And it doesn't say this is how you need to handle it. It's just like you need to think about this.
Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, I prefer that. Don't tell me how to feel. Don't tell me how to think.
Yeah,
Sure, show
yeah,
me the issue, show me the concern. And
yeah,
then if there's a certain way that seems better, I'm going to find that.
yeah,
And you're right. This film does that, and it does it with a number of things. Like I said, it does it with grief.
yeah.
It lets him just sit in his grief. It doesn't tell you how he has to process it, you know?
Well, Claire and blanking on his name, Richard, right? Yeah,
Robert.
Robert. Sorry,
Yeah.
Robert and Claire are two different examples of how you could deal with grief. They both have lost their spouses, right?
Hmm.
And uh, Robert has kind of burrowed down where he was with them so he doesn't lose sight of them, right? He like there throughout the movie there's times where he essentially is hallucinating and hearing the voices, and he talks to Claire about how he doesn't want to turn his head sometimes because he doesn't want to lose the voice, right?
Hmm.
And that's how he's dealt with grief. And then you have Claire who lost her husband, it sounds like through a long illness, and then she takes a new job that's just being created in a whole different environment. You know, it sounds like she moved across country maybe, and like is doing something kind of literally out on a limb, like literally, and that's how she's dealing with grief. And there isn't judgment in the movie that Robert's wrong and she's right, or she's wrong and Robert's right. There's just kind of like they both are encountering the reality that this is how they're dealing with grief, and neither of them seem to go like, well, you're doing it wrong. They're just kind of expressing how they're dealing with it.
And interestingly, I think the mainstream Hollywood resolution there would have been that Robert and Claire got together and they
Yeah.
were happily ever after.
Yes. Yes.
It does not happen.
Yes, but I feel like it was interesting because there were quite a few times where the trope we're used to in movies, the director and writer specifically chose to go in the opposite direction.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, um, you
Which
know,
I'm really okay with.
yeah. I to me that's what's nice sometimes about movies is they have a twist, and it's not a dramatic twist. It's just the thing you think I'm going to do, I'm not going to do.
Right.
This woman who's a widow shows up. She clearly loves this area of the country. You could see how a relationship with both of them could be healing and productive for both of them. That's
Mhm.
what's going to happen. No, they're just going to be friends. They're going to have some profound conversations with one another, and then the movie's going to continue to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I thought was really fascinating.
Yeah.
So let's see what else we're talking about.
I
Um
I thought I one thing I do think was really interesting and really well done is they dealt with Robert's grief, right? He's away logging when his wife and his daughter die. And again,
off
spoilers.
screen we don't see
Yeah,
again, this
yeah,
is
we
part of
yeah,
that whole
yeah,
dramatic,
yeah.
you don't get the Hollywood ending, or the Hollywood part would have been, oh, this tragic thing, and you'd have seen it, you
Yeah,
know.
or you would have seen him find bodies or like
Right.
but literally, he goes back to his home and it's just gone. There's
It's just
nothing.
ash. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but to me, what was really powerful was you see someone who um, is feels guilty about the fact that their family died and that they weren't there for them,
Hmm.
and yet you see throughout the movie how even when he dreams about it, he dreams about the fire that destroyed his home and his family. You recognize even in his dreams, he recognizes that he couldn't have done anything. Like the way the dream happens and the fire happens, it
Hmm.
wouldn't have mattered if he was sleeping in the bed. He would have just died with them. It wasn't like he would have found a way out. Like it didn't work that way. And to me, it was really interesting to have a movie talk about the fact that oftentimes we feel guilty for things that happen in other people's lives, and we kind of believe we let them down, and then there's some catharsis in realizing that um, sometimes tragedy happens and there's nothing you could have done about it.
Yeah. And I think, at least from personal experience, I'm going to say that as clergy, we feel that sometimes more intensely.
Yes.
When somebody, oh, so and so's in the hospital, and before you get a chance to get there, they pass away. It's like, like I could have been there. I get,
Yeah.
I think I think we can really identify with that.
Mhm.
Not saying that other people don't, but I think that, being called to care for people, you feel it a little more intensely,
Yeah.
for sure. So what else?
Um, the
Talked a
idea
little
of
about environmentalism. You talked,
the change, there's also a deep issue of there's a deep thread of change in this movie.
yeah.
And both that there's times where it's made clear things change and change dramatically. And then there's also times where the movie kind of sneaks in this idea of, do things really change? Like you have the wonderful scene at the end where he goes to Spokane and he sees a TV and it talks about him looking in a mirror for the first time in a decade, and he's watching John. We know it's John Glenn orbiting the world, and
Mhm.
he's like, "What's?" He talks to someone on the street, and he goes, "What's that guy doing?" And she's like, "He's in space." And then they show a picture of the Earth, and he goes, "What's that?" And she goes, "That's us." And so that's a moment of deep change, right?
Yeah.
But then there's another time in this movie where they're sleeping in canvas tents, and Arn tells him, "Oh, these canvas tents were used in the Civil War,
Hmm.
and they were used during basically the settling or the invasion of the West. The cavalry coming in and kind of basically defeating the Native American tribes and kind of expansion." And then he's like, "And I'm sure these canvas tents will be used long after we're dead." Like, and you realize things change, but they also don't.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. So
Yeah,
I've heard.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, there's there's a this is a really interesting thing. That this is not, and I want to say this. I don't want this to sound like it's a bad thing. It's not a popcorn film.
No.
This is not a, turn your brain off for 2 hours sort of film. This is a thinking film.
Yes.
It really is.
And what's fascinating is it doesn't require you to like pick apart an argument or deconstruct a puzzle. It's literally asking you just really simple but profound questions and then just going like, what's your response? You
Yeah.
know,
What do you think?
what do
Yeah.
you think? You
Yeah.
know, there's this beautiful landscape in front of you, and it's clearly being changed. And we see the fact that we've gone from slowly cutting down these trees to wiping out forests.
Yeah,
Is
and
is
and
you
the
know,
in the beginning they're building a train bridge, and then he
yeah,
says like years from now it'll be replaced by one of stone and steel,
yeah.
you know, and there's that constant, like, this recurring image of him on the train crossing this river, and you see the newer bridge in the distance. It's
Well, and,
like
and
that comparison, or that juxtaposition of old and new.
yeah, and even I thought it was fascinating because, like, even something that you would think, like, for example, there's this really powerful scene where a Chinese immigrant gets just literally thrown off a bridge. Like,
Mhm.
literally, um, for whatever reason, the owners of the railway don't want this guy, has feel like this guy's done something wrong or something, and they literally just pick him up and throw him off the bridge. And there's no deep discussion about it. You don't have Robert going back and doing a monologue about how all you have is him seeing this person throughout the movie kind of as a ghost. And
Mhm.
you recognize he's struggling with it and making trying to make peace with it and his role in it and the fact he didn't try to stop it and but there's no dialogue about it. There's no
Yeah.
conversation about it. There's no monologue. It's just this powerful scene and then it just kind of lingers.
Yeah, and they just let you sit with it, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like, okay, what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, yeah, it's powerful. And, you know, in a lot of ways, I can appreciate that so much more because it's encouraging you, the viewer, to think about it, to make up your own mind about it, rather than the writer, producer, director, or whatever beat you over the head with how they feel about it. You know,
Yeah.
um, this is a reality. This sort of thing actually happened.
Yeah.
What do you make of it? You know?
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
and I think that's fair. I don't insult my intelligence by telling me how to think. Right?
yeah, I honestly think it was more, I don't know how you felt, but I think it was more powerful for me to just let it hang there
Yeah.
than had he gone home to Gladys's wife and had like this long debate with her about it.
Right.
You know, the fact that he just shows up as a ghost and you kind of have to wrestle with, did he do something wrong? Why did they do this? Why was this okay? You
Right.
know, all of that stuff you had to process it yourself.
Yeah, and it's interesting that my son was sitting with me for the first part of the movie, and then I had to send him to bed. It was bedtime, but
Yeah.
he was sitting with me, so he saw that scene, and his immediate reaction was,
Yeah.
"Yeah, it's a
No,
fair
it's
reaction."
it's I mean, there's a reason why there was a phrase called "you don't have a Chinaman's chance." I mean that was a phrase, and that was because they often got the hardest jobs. They often did had to do the stuff with dynamite and that kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
often, unfortunately, they weren't treated as human beings. And this scene kind of reminded you of that.
Kind of showed that, it was probably more harsh in Kansas, but we'll leave that out.
Yes, we're all crazy. Uh, yeah. If
Um,
yeah, if you don't know, there's a I don't know if we said this during the filming, but there's a time where the Arn character goes, "I've been everywhere and everyone's pretty nice except the
yeah,
crazy people in Kansas." And
Kansas, right?
I'm from Kansas, so I was like, oh,
Yeah,
okay, that makes sense.
yeah. No offense, Kansans. We're joking. We're joking. Um, so what else? No, that's it. I mean, that touches on the immigration. There's also a scene early in the film where the Chinese folks are being rounded up and taken
Yeah,
away.
yeah. And
And
again,
that
you
was
don't have a dialogue about it. You just all you have is this was a really traumatic situation for him to see at 5 or 6,
right.
and that was it. Like it's just like
And that was it. And,
yeah,
again, there's other things like that. Okay, he was abandoned. No one ever told him about his parents or
yeah,
why his parents weren't, no longer there.
yeah.
Nor do they tell us.
No.
Like you just sit with it.
Well, I had a great aunt who was actually this movie. It doesn't tell you all this, but there were what were called train orphans, and my great aunt was a train orphan.
Okay.
And in the movie, Robert clearly is too. They basically his parents died, her parents died. I don't even know if she knows what happened to her parents. And they put these kids on trains, and they basically took them to stops trying to find them parents. Um, and that's clearly what happened in the movie. That's clearly what happened to Robert. They
Hmm.
put this orphan on a train and took them to different locations and tried to find parents for them.
So then let me circle back to the dreams part.
Yeah,
So then is the train sort of a metaphor for change?
yeah. I think that's a good or chaos. You know, um, you know.
As he gets off the train, he sees the fire in the distance that, we don't see his wife and daughter die, but that's the fire that took them.
Yeah,
Um, you know, there seems to be a lot of, you know, issues of obviously the title works, but there's a lot of issues around the trains and chaos and change and
yeah.
yeah. Okay, we've just unzipped the mystery of the films.
We've solved it. Yes, we have.
I'm sure. And then, the writer director will go, no, you guys are idiots.
I'm sure they would. um,
Because you know how many people watch this. I mean,
yes, yeah.
it's like
There's not
like
going to be a huge
six, I
amount of
think.
people. I mean,
Maybe eight.
obviously, people have watched it. It's nominated for several.
No,
Uh,
I mean the
Oscars.
podcast. How many
Oh, yeah,
podcasts? Six or eight.
yeah. 6 or 8, 9, 10, whatever. Uh, yes. So basically, what are you doing with your time? Is what we're asking.
But I think this is the more we've talked about it, kind of the more I really like the film. I
Yeah.
was challenged by it because it is a very slow
Yes.
developing story.
Yeah. In a way, I really feel like it's a meditation. It's a weird meditation on life, death, trauma,
Yeah,
and it's just basically gives you things to think about, but it doesn't really it 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 expects you to do the deep dive without forcing you to do the deep dive.
yeah. Without telling you how to think about it, it just says think about it,
Yeah.
which I think, again, respects the intelligence of the viewer.
Yeah, I do think I don't know. Like I said, I this movie really made me think more about death than a lot of movies do.
Mhm.
When a lot of movies like have the main character do a dialogue about death.
Yeah.
He, or how we deal with grief. Like there's this. powerful scene where a Native American shop owner goes to help him, bring him food, check on him, because he's basically Robert's just living in the on the remains of the cabin. Like
Yeah,
that's
living
all he's.
in the ashes,
And
literally.
you, there's a moment where Robert finally recognizes and admits his family's gone and they're not coming back. Um, and he starts to cry, and the Native American shop owner is doesn't know how to deal with it, and so he kind of walks away. And Robert apologizes for crying, and you realize, why are you apologizing for crying? And then you realize, oh, we do that all the time, though. We all, especially men, I'll just say it for men. I feel like oftentimes when we lose our emotional kind of stoicness in front of other people, our first instinct is to apologize for it.
Yeah.
I know you do it as a joke, but when we talk about emotional movies and how you started crying at them, you'll go like, "There's some dust in the room,"
There's
like,
dust in the room.
and
Yeah.
that's an instinct, right? A
Yeah.
male instinct that somehow crying is wrong,
Yeah.
and you get this scene where it happens, but nobody talks about it. But then you're supposed to, I think, it kind of leads you to think, well, why is he apologizing? Like, he literally lost his wife and his daughter. It's okay if he's crying. Like
Yeah.
that's
And
normal.
look, I joke about it, but my kids jeez. My kids have seen me cry,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, yeah,
They'll look at me and go, Dad, are you crying? Yes. It's a sad movie or it's a sad moment, or I'm
yeah.
thinking about, look, this
Oh,
go back a couple of months, we lost a cat and
yeah, yeah,
he was a real sweetheart,
yeah.
and yes, I cry. I was the only one that was going to be home. I had to take his body to the vet to get it
That's hard.
processed and all that,
That's
and
hard.
it was rough. And
Yeah,
yes, I cried.
yeah,
Um, anyway, that's you know,
yeah. I honestly, what I would say to people is, this is a movie I think is worth watching,
yeah,
but don't come into it expecting these dramatic things. It's not. That's not
yeah.
really what this movie is.
It's not going to be. Look, of the films that we have seen so far that are Oscar nominated,
Yeah.
um, I don't think this is better than Sinners.
No.
I loved Sinners. I
Yeah.
think I'm pulling for it to win a whole
Yeah.
boatload of
Yeah.
Academy
Actually been nominated for more Oscars than any other movie.
than
Yeah.
any other film ever, and it was fantastic. Okay.
It is absolutely.
But that being said, I think we should probably look, as you started to say, this is a good film.
Hmm.
It is a good film. It is well worth watching. Don't come at it expecting a popcorn movie.
No.
It is a much slower developing,
Mhm.
um, contemplative is a good word,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
contemplative kind of film.
Yeah. Yeah.
But certainly well worth watching.
Yes.
Um, and really, there's not even a whole lot in it that's objectionable. I think your kids would be bored to tears with it,
Yeah.
but there's probably nothing that, you wouldn't, you'd be concerned
There is
about them
a
seeing.
sex scene, but it's not
It's
gratuitous
and
at
it's
all.
not even there's no nudity. It's
No.
just a yeah. So so let's move on. Let's see what do we so let's talk about what we'll talk about next week. Um
It's your
we
turn.
want to stay with Oscar films, right?
Yeah.
Anything you have in mind?
No, not necessarily. There's a couple that I could throw out if you don't have anything, but
Well, we have already done the ones I know of that are Oscar nominated. We've already talked about Sinners, Train Dreams, obviously, K-pop Demon Hunters,
yeah.
which is nominated for. I'll be very surprised if that doesn't win for animated film just
Yeah.
because of its popularity, but that's a whole other
One
story.
battle after another.
Yeah. One battle after another, right? That's the other one I was thinking of as a Best Picture nominee. Um, there's another Best Picture nominee that I've heard some interesting things about, but I haven't
Okay.
seen yet.
Sure.
Bugonia.
Yes, I actually, that was the one. If you didn't have one, I was going to throw that
That
out.
was
So
the one you were going to throw out. Okay,
yeah,
so then let's watch that one.
yeah.
Now that's on.
It's on
Is it on?
Peacock.
It's on Peacock. Okay. So,
I'm sure you can also get it on Amazon Prime. You probably have to pay for it though. Yeah.
yeah, I got Peacock. I'll watch it on that.
Yes, yeah,
So,
I do too.
okay. So then next week's film, again, Oscar nominated Best Picture film called Begonia.
Yeah.
We will talk about that next Friday. Until then, friends, keep on finding God in the dark. We'll see you all next week. Take care and God bless. Oh, hey, you made it all the way to the end of the video. Well, thanks for watching. We appreciate your support. And friends, if you find anything that's really wonderful or entertaining or helpful in your Christian walk, we want to encourage you to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this video with your friends. We publish every Friday morning at 10 a.m. And we hope that you continue to find these videos and these discussions entertaining and informative. Take care and God bless. Bye.